Thank you, Luann.
Okay, it's ready whenever you're ready to start.
Thank you. It is 4:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Judiciary and Law Committee, a standing committee of the Dunn County Board of Supervisors. I have a question on my screen. I can see the names of the people. Are they visible also on the YouTube if people are watching later? Are those names?
I just see six panes on the YouTube of the people who have their cameras on at the moment.
Okay, and their names are on there?
Yes.
Okay, good.
No, not the people who you don't see a camera on. Their names do not display on the Zoom. I think it will display if they speak.
Thank you. Then what I'm going to do is we'll call the roll and I'm going to call off your name. And when I do, if you wave to the camera, our thousands of loyal viewers will know who each person is. In terms of committee members, Bob Bauer. There's Bob. Carl Vandermeulen. Mike Rogers. And Chairman of the Dunn County Board of Supervisors, Dave Bartlett. I don't see Jim Zons yet, but he very often rings in just a little bit late. In addition, I'll introduce the other people that I have on the call so far that you can see. Katie Shalley, Clerk of Courts. Sarah Benedict, CJCC. Marshall Moltoff, Chief Deputy. Want to give him a wave? Josie LaLiberty and the Child Support. Keith Stry, Chief Financial Officer. Luann Doms is our IT support. Melissa Gillenbach is available on the phone. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 28th meeting, but before the motion, Katie has a small correction she wants to make. Katie, go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to change the wording from the prior meeting minutes to read from unfunded to unfilled underneath the child support summary from our last meeting. That was brought up by Josie earlier today to me. So it's going to read unfilled instead of unfunded/unfilled.
Okay, did everybody notice? It just removes the unfunded word. Now I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as corrected.
So moved.
Carl Vandermeulen moves. Bob Bauer seconds. Any other discussion, corrections, changes, additions, comments about the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes from the last meeting say aye.
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 You know what I just noticed? Oh no, that's good. Okay. Then we will move to staff reports and we'll start out with the clerk of courts. Katie?
Hi, I submitted my written report. So to date, we've had 5 jury trials since the beginning of COVID, since March, I should say. Exciting news, we got our equipment for our courtroom audio and visual technology project. That was all delivered to us last week. So we are just awaiting our vendors to actually get a date set up to come in here. We need our electrician, and the phone company is going to come in and do the wiring. We're hoping by the end of November, we'll have that project wired and have everything installed prior to the end of 2021 if everything goes correctly. I've been working with staff. I'm going to start allowing some of my staff to work remotely. We've never done this before in the court system, so it's kind of a shocker for all of us to do, but we need to preserve the courts in the long run since it seems that there's no end to COVID-19 at this point. We're going to stagger them a couple days in the office and a couple days out, so we'll hopefully minimize the amount of exposure between all of us in the office. And we've also received our reimbursement from our COVID-19 expenses so far for 2020. So we've received a little over $4,500 for what we've installed and purchased and installing the plexiglass for the courtroom. So we've been all fully compensated for that at this point. Other than that, I don't know if you have any other questions. I think I did kind of a summary from our written report.
Katie, can you elaborate a little bit on the number of jury trials? You said that we've had 5 since COVID. What would the normal schedule look like?
We've been averaging anywhere between 14 and 17 jury trials the last 3 years. So it's really 1 to 2 per month. We might have one month and go 3 months and then have 3 within a month. The last like 5 to 10 years, we used to have about 40 jury trials a year. So our numbers have really slowed down, but I wouldn't say, I know there was 3 trials canceled specifically due to COVID that they were prepared to go. Otherwise, the rest were going to take a plea agreement. So those were off the table.
Well, how do you account for the significantly lower number of trials now than what there used to be?
I just think it could be some of the attorneys or the cases before the courts just working out plea resolutions or agreements. I guess that's all. The civil cases, we don't have many civil jury trials. We've only had 1 or 2 this year, but we went about 18 months without even having a civil jury trial. So I think maybe the lawyering in those cases.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and let the minutes reflect that Jim Zans has joined us. Hi, Jim. Any other questions for Katie regarding the courts? Don't see anything. Thank you, Katie. We'll move on to Criminal Justice Collaborating Council. Sarah.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to give an update. So my written report was also in the packet. So as far as the Criminal Justice Collaboration Division is concerned, our budget's fine there. As far as staffing, we're really continuing to do that blended in the office and remote work. I'm just really trying to stay nimble and proactive and yet meeting all of our customers' needs. As far as the CJCC, so busy with all the work group activities. So I did kind of highlight some of the major things that the work groups were working on. The CJCC did write for a grant, and we just got word that we did receive that. So that's that DOJ emergency COVID supplemental funding. So that's for our courtroom upgrade. So that's fantastic. We're going to have more about that for the budget resolution in a little bit. I also wanted to just highlight, we have a date for our virtual community forum on OWIs. So that's going to be on the 10th of November. So you should see a press release coming out shortly and some promotion of that. So it'll be a virtual Facebook Live event with some key speakers via Zoom, and we're going to be talking about OWIs and just really options to make a safer choice, to go out and have fun, but there's safe ways to get home, and we can keep each other all safe. So hopefully you can join us for that event. If not, it will be recorded so folks can watch it at a later time. And then I just also highlight, we've got our CJCC, our last quarterly meeting of the year will be on the 12th of November. So we'll be making some elections for the upcoming year, 2021. Chris Corpola is going to be assuming the chair of CJCC, so we'll be nominating a vice chair for election there. And we're also going to be having a presentation on our collaborative programs and our recidivism study that Katie Shalley's been sharing with our data work group. So lots of exciting things on deck for you in November. But for now, any questions about anything I covered or didn't cover?
Sarah, did you say the quarterly meeting was the 12th of December?
Sorry, 12th of November.
November? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. And
No, I
that
think I got
invite
it.
will be coming out as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Sarah?
Excuse me, can I just verify that the person whose number is 2645, is that Brenda Lafort who joined us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My number is 5309.
Okay,
You get it, Luann?
yes, I've
Okay.
got her renamed.
I don't know if anybody else is having trouble with their phones, but I can't use mine today for some reason or other. Anything else for Sarah?
Verizon is down.
All right, moving right along. District Attorney. I don't see Andrea anywhere. Andrea around? We'll hold off on her. She may be in a little bit later. Emergency Management 911. Melissa, you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you're up.
The emergency management portion, I just wanted to thank everyone for all of the support for the hazard mitigation project. That finally came to fruition a couple weeks ago when we finalized it at the county board. So I do thank you for that. That has been at least a 1.5 year long project. So it will be good to have that done. And like I said before, that is about a 5-year plan. And so we'll start the process over probably in about 4 years again of that plan. So thank you very much for that. We continue to work with our public health office and also Eau Claire. Both offices are hosting some testing, and we are working with them to, I guess, coordinating with them to make sure things are going well at those sites. Eau Claire had requested use of our mobile command center, and we did take that over for them last week on Thursday so that they could have it for this weekend's testing. I did just receive an email. They said it worked great. They're very appreciative that they could have that vehicle for kind of warming shelter. As everybody knows, winter came a little bit earlier than we expected, and so that's what they're using it for at this time. So, and tomorrow we'll be assisting KT in her office as they're hosting testing site here in Menominee. So the Emergency Management Office has been working with that. And of course, continued support for our local agencies, police, fire, EMS, long-term care facilities and stuff, and trying to maintain their PPE equipment that they need to keep themselves safe. We're trying to make sure everybody has the appropriate amount for staffing and different things like that. So that's kind of been our focus probably the last month now. So anybody have any questions on that?
Questions for Melissa? I see Carl's hand up. Carl, go ahead.
Just curious whether PPE supply is adequate now.
You know, I think that it depends on what, both what agency you're talking to and what type of PPE. We had some requests for different things throughout this COVID-19 process where, you know, maybe they wanted 500 gowns and we were only able to give them, you know, 400. I think that most items are at an adequate level for our area, and I really did not see a huge issue with the level of PPE we had. Right at the beginning, there probably was, as people were trying to, you know, ramp up and figure out what they needed, and the guidelines were changing so fast when this first started as what we actually physically needed for PPE. So I think Dunn County has done very well. We send out a survey. These facilities request back what they need, and then we request assistance from the state to try and get them that PPE. There have been actually 2 to 3 weeks where we have requested nothing. We did not need one thing for Dunn County. So I think that overall Dunn County is doing okay. Even as you've seen a huge surge in our cases here in Dunn County, I think we're doing okay. It doesn't mean that, you know, we can let up or, you know, not maintain a certain stock of certain items, but I think for the most part we're doing okay.
Thank you. Anything else for Melissa? Melissa?
Yeah.
Anything else from you?
I can go on to 911. There's kind of the same old thing. We've been doing some mandatory training for our dispatchers. As you know, most of them didn't get to go to different classes and things for their continuing education. So we've been doing some online stuff in order for them to, maintain some of the certificates and things that they have. So we've been working on that. And then just another thing that we've been working on is repeater replacement. I know we've worked on that probably throughout the year. We have 2 more to replace for our old analog system, or what would be considered our backup system for the Sheriff's Department. So we have 1 repeater ready to be installed for that, and then the other one hopefully will continue and get that done before the end of the year. So that's funding that I think you guys approved probably a couple years ago, and we've been carrying it forward until we get the entire project done. It's kind of been in a couple different phases, so we're getting closer to the end of the entire project. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Melissa. Anybody with any questions for Melissa on either emergency management or 911? I don't see any, so thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Next up is the medical examiner, but I just got an email from Marcy. She's going to meet with some folks yet this afternoon and sends her regrets. The one thing that she did share with me is we may set a record for the number of deaths in a single month this month due to combination of traffic fatalities and COVID and what all, I don't know, but she and her office are pretty busy. Sheriff's Department and the jail. I see the sheriff is with us. Greetings, Kevin. Do you want to take it away?
You betcha. Hey, we can live without Marcy's ray of sunshine once in a while, I think. With her reports are never all that energizing. But dealing with some COVID issues here in the office. I've got a couple employees out. Well, actually, I have 6 employees out between patrol staff and support staff, either isolating at home because of possible exposures or a family member, and a couple employees that are actually positive. But I figured out I think it's better to get it and come back within 10 days than to have your wife have it and then be gone for 10 plus 14 days. So that's kind of what we're dealing with, is we have some spouses that have tested positive and now we're short staffed because of that exposure. Budget looks good overall. We're sitting where we should be this time of year. We're right there at the percentage of the year left to where we should be in our budget, sitting probably a little better on the jail side than the patrol side, but overall still sitting quite well. We did have to purchase a new steam table for the kitchen. That blew out, and it's, I don't remember, Marshall or Brenda can probably correct me, $8,000 to $10,000. I think it came in around $9,000 that we're working with finance on sending through a budget adjustment that we'd have to take some money out of jail assessment funds. We budgeted $50,000, I believe, this year for some possible expenses like that might come up. But this was one, our hot food was down for a period of time over a weekend in the jail that we had to get a new steam table ordered and replaced right away, so we could continue to serve hot food through the jail. Inmates and jail staff are all COVID-free to our knowledge at this point, and hope it stays that way. We're working from the patrol side to try and reduce the number of people coming to the jail just for less exposure. We continue to isolate those new incoming inmates for 14 days to try and keep them separated from general population. It seems to be working quite well so far. Our body scanner came in on October 13th and was set up on October 14th. That'll be funded through Routes to Recovery CARES Act funds. So Take a look at my notes, see if I'm missing anything. Election day staffing, some questions have come up. Mr. Tripp wanted me to address what our plan is on election day staffing. We've added one additional patrol deputy to work that day, along with assigning all of our investigators. Pretty much everybody working that day is going to be checking in on polling sites. You know, we've got 22 townships and multiple villages that don't have police departments. So to possibly staff each polling place with a deputy all day is impossible. But my plan is to have everybody out and about and just kind of popping in on polling places to make sure there isn't people causing trouble, illegal activity, campaigning within 100 feet of a polling location, things like that we need to keep an eye on, and we sometimes get complaints about. But other than that, I believe you're all on the email distribution list for news releases for the fatal crashes we've had in the last couple of weeks. So it's off to a rough start on the winter for us, and but dealing with those as they come. Other than that, Marshall, anything to add, or Brenda?
Just on the steam table, approximately $9,500. We had someone in that who fixed it, wouldn't give us any guarantee on how long it would last. Well, it turns out it didn't last at all. We're trying to hold out at least until our roads to recovery grant funding could be received to replenish the jail assessment fund, but that didn't happen. And like the sheriff said, it's a required piece of equipment to keep our meals in progress at the jail. So we had to make the decision to get that ordered and installed as soon as possible.
Brenda, I think you unmuted. Did you have anything to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, I will just add, Captain LaForte sent you the kind of the numbers from the jail. Average daily population, you know, is running between that 80 and 90. So we're not doing a great job of keeping people out of jail, but that's something we really don't control. They do. So other than that, back to you, Mr. Tripp.
Thank you. The steam table comes out of jail assessment fund. What's that fund look like these days? Is there money in there?
There is money in there. We usually take in, we're still trying to figure that out, around $85,000 a year into that jail assessment fund. So $10 out of every citation issued in the county goes to jail assessment funds, and it's usually comes in at around $85,000. There's money there, and that's why we budget for unexpected expenses, $50,000 annually. In case steam tables go down, locks break, things like that in the jail facility that we can use that money for.
Mr. Stry, I see you buzzed in. Do you have some enlightenment for us?
Yeah, Sheriff hit the nail on the head. We did look at that, I would say about a month ago, and the audited financial results at the end of 2019, there was well over $100,000 in that account. And the sheriff is correct. We've been conservative in budgeting. You know, we estimate to 85,000 coming in, but only commit to using 50,000 per year. You know, the intent, there's a very limited focus of where those funds can be used for the jail. And so we've been using it that way, managing that way.
So there's plenty of cash available, it sounds like. Sheriff, you can order the deluxe steam table with the cup holders. Carl, I saw your hand up a minute ago. Did you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is, I thought on election day I'd go for a walk or a bike ride around the polling places that are close to me here. If I see anything concerning, do I call 911 or some other number?
Well, that would probably be the non-emergency number. I assume, I don't know where you live, Carl, but if it's in the city of Menominee, obviously those would be directed to the non-emergency number for Menominee Police Department. Unless there's, you know, a true emergency that there's a fight breaking out or something like that. But if there's violations of election law stuff, that can be reported to the local jurisdiction at their non-emergency number.
Okay, that's good to know. The other thing I wondered is, do we expect that because of early voting, it'll take any longer than usual to count the votes locally?
I guess that would probably be a better question for the county clerk. You know, I don't anticipate there'd be a big turnout at polling places myself because of the early voting and the absentee ballots that have been sent out. I think we're looking at record numbers of absentee ballots that have been sent out. So we're hoping for a nice, quiet, peaceful election day, but it's been a crazy year and I won't rule anything out.
Brenda, I saw your phone light up. Did you have a comment or just banging on the table?
No, everything's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the Sheriff's Department? Great. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Ad support. Josie, it's your turn now.
All right. So I too submitted my written report. Our federal fiscal year just ended here, the end of September. I gave you a little screenshot of how we, as a county, performed towards our federal performance targets compared to the state. Overall, I'm very pleased with these numbers. With COVID and our lack of enforcement tools, you know, we really didn't know what the year was going to look like. So overall, we're pretty happy with how we finished out. My guess is that the current support collections and arrears collections weren't as bad as we thought because the stimulus money was interceptable. So if people had a stimulus check in their name, but they owed child support debt, it came to us instead of them. So that might have helped pad our numbers a bit. Legal secretary, we're going to do interviews next week. 6 interviews on November 2nd and 3rd. So hopefully by our next meeting, I'll be introducing our new staff person. Credit cards, we had our training and we went live. When I submitted my report, we had accepted our first payment. I just checked here a few minutes ago and we've now taken in over $2,040 in credit card payments since October 7th or 8th. So that's working. COVID, nothing else has really changed how we're doing business from past reports, and the budget's still looking good. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Josie. Any questions? Sounds like things are going well. I don't see the DA yet. Anybody know what happened to Andrea today? All right.
Want me to
Then
knock on the wall and see if she hears me?
no, she no, thanks for the offer though. That brings us to item 5, request of the chair. What I'd like to do is take a look at that resolution on I always forget what PSAP stands for, Public Safety Answering Points Resolution. Get some sense from the committee if this is something we want to go forward with. It very much is in line with our legislative agenda item, which would request more funding. So if you've had a chance to look at this, a little bit of background. Yeah, I think it was 2011 budget. They passed a surcharge on cell phone calls. The money was directed to fire and police protection, but before it actually went into effect, the legislature changed and the governor signed a bill that directed that money to go into the general fund with the specific purpose of going to shared revenue. So the money that has been collected for this is in shared revenue, which the county gets, but it's not directly, it's not directed specifically to this 911 improvement. If we were to go ahead with this resolution and pass it, if the county board were to pass it, my guess would be that it would add a little bit of weight to the argument that we would like the legislature and the governor to go back to their original intent, move this money, which comes from a surcharge on cell phone calls, back to 911 service, which seems to make sense to me. I don't have any strong feelings about this one way or another. Our legislative agenda does specify that we're going to lobby for improved funding. And if this were directed to 911, it would help us to, and Melissa can speak to this, I'm sure, it would help us to pay for the necessary improvements to go to the next generation 911 system, which has been mandated by the state. We are moving in that direction and there is a cost to it. So if Melissa would like to speak to it, she's certainly free to do that now, or Keith for that matter, since it might have an impact on shared revenue. I don't know if it would. Otherwise, I'd entertain any kind of direction from the committee. We don't need a motion. We pretty much just need a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether to proceed with this. So anybody that feels like they've got something to add, sure would like to hear it.
Jim, this is Melissa.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting this in here. I do appreciate it. Prior to 2011, they used to collect this fee from the every person that had access to a device, a phone device, and they would try and offset our costs for our 911 lines within our communications center. And when they changed the process and where the money was going to go, we started to incur those costs within the communications center. So just a little history on that prior to prior to 2011, they used to kind of offset some of our costs, and we took that on kind of when we moved into the wireless phase, which was around 2008, 9, 10 in there. We started incurring some of those costs ourselves. So even if they aren't willing to or don't have the funding, I'm not sure how many devices is out there, but I mean, it's on everybody's phone bill if you look at it. I think it's around 39 cents. They would offset something for us. So even if they're unable to collect enough or have enough to give us millions of dollars for new equipment, if they could offset our daily costs, like with our 911 lines, things like that, any of it is a great help. So I just wanted to add that in, and that's all I had to say. Thank you.
So Melissa, does that mean that you would support us going ahead with this resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on, and again, it's not a vote on this at this time. What we do is, if you direct me to do this, I will ask Melissa and Nick to get together, write a resolution specific to Dunn County that accomplishes this goal, and then we would pass that on to the county board. Mike.
So currently that money that's collected, where does it go now?
Right now it goes into the general fund and it's specifically earmarked for shared revenue. But frankly, if you know anything about the general fund of the Dunn County Board, it's the general fund. I mean, What this resolution, well, what it would do if they actually passed this, it would direct this money specifically to 911. That would help. Whether it would reduce funding in other areas, I have no way of knowing. I don't know if Keith can help us on that, or Dave. I don't know.
Mr. Chair,
ahead.
certainly that is a risk that you take. But the point I can certainly understand and respect is, if it was targeted initially and levied or imposed for a targeted use and then diverted to another use, it's not within the spirit of what was originally intended. So, there could be arguments that way as well. I know state shared revenues was also not funded under originally as it is funded now. So things have changed there.
Thank you. Can anybody help me out? If this if this were to happen, does anybody know what kind of formula they would use to allocate funding to counties? Would it be, if it's on a per capita basis, phone use basis? Do we have any clue? I suppose there is the off chance that we could take a beating on this. I wouldn't expect so, but that's one thing we could look into. And frankly, if the committee would like to go forward with this, one of the things that I will do is communicate with the counties association. They'll have an answer to my question, I'm sure. How about this? Anybody else have comments one way or the other? How about we do a thumbs up, thumbs down? If you would like to pursue this as a resolution to present to the county board, give me a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
I see a couple. Jim's on. How about you?
I was the one who said thumbs up.
Oh, okay. All right, then we will do that. And what I'm going to do is ask Melissa, and I'll contact Nick to get some specific language to Dunn County. I'll communicate with the counties association, see if I can find out how the allocation might be done, and then we can take it up at the next meeting. Anything else on this issue? All right, I see the district attorney has joined us. Welcome, Andrea. If you'd like to, we'll interrupt our agenda a little bit and you can give your monthly report. We have your written report, but if there's some things you'd like to say, we'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. As I said in the email, my overall budget looks good so far. We do have a pretty busy November and December coming up for jury trials, but I think we certainly have the funds to get through the year. So I feel good overall on our budget. I did have some vacancies. I have some vacancies in positions. Our deferred prosecution coordinator gave her 2 weeks notice last week. She obtained a full-time position elsewhere. She's been looking for full-time for quite some time, as the benefits are important to her. And so I think it's a big loss to our office. She's been with the district attorney's office for a long time and did a really good job. So, but we're looking to fill that position. It's, I believe, 30 hours. So we'll see the type of candidates that we can get, and hopefully we can get that filled. In the meantime, we have a plan in place to make sure our office manager is trained in on her duties, and then we can try to fill that as quickly as we can, and then have other staff work on assuming her duties in the meantime. I also have now 2 vacancies in victim witness as well. Our full-time, they're both fully grant funded positions. And so I'll be looking for new candidates for that. And so with 3 staff down very abruptly, it's sort of threw a little wrench in our office, but we're planning to move forward. And I also know that I think Barb Landy, our victim witness coordinator, will be retiring, I believe, at the end of the year. She hasn't given me a date, but so if she retires, that leaves one half-time position there that's vacant. So I have a lot of work to do on that end. But I also think when she does leave, she'll have some very big, whoever replaces her will have very big shoes to fill. She's been really with the program a very long time, and some things you just are hard to teach, that the way she interacts with victims and families. But she has been doing it a little bit more old school, paper wise. She's sort of been doing double the work, for her grants, doing everything by paper as well as electronically. So hopefully when we get a new person in there, we can try to transition someone to doing it all electronically. But my office, I think, is going to be pretty busy in the next month or two, trying to fill victim witness as well as try to find a candidate to fill her position. Other than that, not much else is new with our office.
Thank you, Andrea. Questions, anybody? Questions for the DA? I have one. How did your new assistant DA do in his OWI case against one of the best attorneys in the state?
He did pretty well overall. It was a great learning experience for him. And it's sort of the nice part. It was put on Zoom, and actually I was watching it too, because some of the questions that he did in his voir dire, I picked up a couple things that I'll steal and I'll ask those. So it was beneficial, I think, for all of our office. But yeah, I'm trying to hopefully get him another trial before the end of the year, because most of our day is spent in court and doing motions and doing offers on cases. There's really, don't do a whole lot of trials, especially with COVID right now. So I was very grateful that he was able to get that experience.
Well, good. Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else for the DA? Thank you, Andrea. Then we're going to move on with, where are we here? Item number 7, reports, resolutions, and ordinances. 7A, the resolution creating crime prevention funding board. This was introduced at our last meeting. There is a resolution now specifically to look at in your packet, if I can find it. And I would entertain a motion to forward this to the county board. And once the motion is on the table, we can discuss.
So Jim Zons.
Jim Zons moves. Is there a second? Dave Bartlett seconds. So we have a motion and a second to forward the resolution to the county board. By the way, I did get a couple of communications in support of this. One from Chief Atkinson of the Menominee Police. He was quite articulate in his support for this funding mechanism for Crime Stoppers. Big supporter of Crime Stoppers, and supports this method of funding. So I just share that with you. I got no communications in opposition. I did submit a list of some questions that I had about the resolution to Marshall, and I'm going to ask Marshall if he'd like to take over now, kind of run through some of those questions that I had, and maybe if someone else has some as well. Marshall, you want to take it?
Absolutely. If you could just remind me some of your questions. I'm at home and I don't have that list with me. I can remember quite a few of them offhand. I believe one of them was I had estimated approximately $7,000 to $10,000 per year into that fund based upon numbers through our county. I did confirm with Katie, based upon the cases that are resolved on a yearly basis through us, that would be her estimation also. on the low end. Obviously, again, like we discussed, we're not going to realize all that revenue right away, but we will, I believe, realize, a good portion of it. And then Katie's done a good job of obtaining funding through restitution programs for that also. I believe the second, one of the other questions is whether the chairman would be responsible in any way for this program, based upon the fact that he's the one that places ahead the resolution on this. And speaking with other jurisdictions that have this, they felt that the county board wouldn't have any more responsibility for this than any other resolution that he would put forward. They also felt, based on the fact of what this board covers, there's very little controversy to this. The money is put into the fund. There's usually only 1 or 2 requests for grants per year that come out of it. And it's just simply of money in and then justifying the decision based upon the statutory language of who it's given to each year and based on the amount requested. Very little question as to the basics of how the board runs as far as, controversy or any type of liability involved in the handling of the board. I believe one of the other questions was how many times a year the board would meet. In speaking to other jurisdictions that had this, they said the initial meeting based upon the creation of the program, so everybody knows who everybody else is on the board. Other than that, they indicated that there's usually only 1 meeting a year, and that would be after the solicitation of grant requests, and then the review of the grant requests and the distribution of funds based upon those requests. And I believe based upon that too, your question was the annual report. Again, I believe that would be pretty simple. From what I've seen is most counties either receive a monthly or quarterly report of funds going into this account based upon those put into it through the clerk of court's office. And as an example, say $10,000 is in that account at the time the solicitation for grants is made and $7,000 is given out. The report would simply have to show how much was gained through the program over the year, the requests by who for grant distribution, those were approved and given out, and then the remaining sum left in the program to be carried over to the following year. If I remember correctly, another question you had, Mr. Tripp, was what happens to the remaining funds in the program? That can be carried over if it's not used by those that request granting. And again, if you remember, there's also the portion of that allows for funding from this to go to the sheriff's office if they have a program that can be designated or classified as a true crime prevention program. Trying to think. Oh, again, I think one of your questions was, the Crime Stoppers program, if they were apply for a request for funding out of this, if it only say $3,000 a year was what it costs to run the program. I know other Crime Stoppers programs say it costs $3,000 a year to pay for the software program and any other associated costs on there. They also request funding for purchase of media materials, information materials, advertising, things like that can be shown to educate the public on the program, as well as informing the public of the program as to basically increase the knowledge base and those that provide tips to the program. Did I miss any, Mr. Tripp?
Marshall, I have to say, I'm impressed with your memory. For a guy that's just sitting there in his house, you went right down my list, which I had to bring up on my computer in front of me because I couldn't remember. Frankly, most of my questions are about the logistics. Give you an example. I looked at the statute, and the clerk of courts collects the money, turns it over to the county treasurer, and the treasurer will have to deposit. Now, in other cases, when we have deposits made, we have to authorize, and maybe we could just use one of our authorized depositories now, but the Committee on Administration has to authorize a depository for the money. So there are some logistical questions. So let me ask one real simple one. Are you going to be doing all that stuff? Because really, and the reason I ask is, well, what we need a person, a go-to person. I think once this is set up, it'll kind of run on its own. But there will be some logistical issues to deal with to get it started. So are you that guy?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I don't believe there would be any conflicts of interest because the request would actually come from the president of the Crime Stoppers Board. But I believe, like you said, like anything, it's going to have a learning experience. But Katie already has the mechanism set in place through the other programs where assessments are taken off citations and placed into county funding streams, and then they're distributed through there. I know one of them in particular is there's assessments for blood draws on OWIs that are placed into a fund at the county level, and those are returned through the sheriff's office to supplement the payments that we already make to pay for blood tests when we complete the OWI process. So many of these mechanisms are in place. I'm completely willing to assist in any way in getting that going, in any other way with the program, as well as documentation. But I think most of these are in place. And like you said, once it gets going, I think it'll be a self-running program once we get it up and going.
Yeah, I do too. And frankly, the money part of it is the least of my concerns. And when I say concerns, I'm not worried or concerned about this, but there are some basic items that need to be addressed. The statute, though, addresses the financial situation, that end of it, pretty simply. To get the board started, though, somebody's going to have to communicate with the municipality, somebody's going to have to communicate with the police chief, somebody's going to have to communicate with the judges to establish the membership of the committee. There might be a role for the county board chair in some of those things. And so that's kind of where my concerns were primarily. The money part of it, again, the statutes are much clearer on how that money is collected and handled and processed. That I don't think is an issue. Even in terms of allocation, I think it's pretty clearly spelled out how that's done. It's just the logistics of forming the group in the first place. And then again, I think once that's done, it'll be pretty much, it'll kind of run itself, I think.
And I have enough contacts throughout the state through being on the state board and those that have already initiated these programs and contacts through there, where I think I can learn from their mistakes on this, the best way to get this going. And I don't want to say make it easier, but I have that ability to use that knowledge to help get this going, hopefully smooth.
Good. All right, questions, comments, anyone? Bob?
On the way I read here that the board you only collect with sentences and people that are put on probation, is that the only two that you'd be collecting from?
It would be collected from those, that are convicted of, crimes. $20 assessed per conviction, successful conviction would go into the fund.
And on the probation.
Correct. Yeah.
Who determines, I mean, if you start running low on funds and stuff, who determines if you need to increase or decrease the cost of this? Is that the board? Or does it just stay at 20 and that's it?
It just stays at 20 per Wisconsin statute. The only way those funds would change if for some reason they actually went in and changed the Wisconsin statute that was designated. The choice is not in our hand. It's in the statute, and I don't see it changing anytime in the near future as far as the number.
Thank you.
All right, let's try again. I looked at the same thing, and that $20 is statutory, so that would require legislative change. So that's I think not an issue. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Are we ready to take a vote on this? Okay, all those in favor of forwarding to the county board with our recommendation, the Crime Prevention Funding Board resolution. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch on this, I'm sure, and would appreciate, and not necessarily monthly, but as things progress, we'll want to hear how how things are going and take a look at that board. Because I think it has some potential for some real benefit in the county. So I want to thank Marshall for bringing this to us in the first place and for his efforts along this line, because I think this could be a real positive step for us. Next item, 7B, budget adjustment resolution for emergency management, hazard grants, budget adjustment. You should have that in your packet as well. And at this point, who wants to talk about this? Melissa, Keith, anybody? Looks like a pretty straightforward grant. Melissa,
Yep,
go ahead.
Tim, this is Melissa. Yeah, basically, like you said, the process started about a year and a half ago, and so we weren't exactly sure when they were going to get it finished. They come into some roadblocks and things, so it was not put in the 2020 budget on either side as an expenditure or as a revenue. It's really just a pass-through. Keith can correct me if I'm wrong, but we will be billed, and then we will receive the exact same amount back from the state. So as soon as we get that invoice, we'll pay it, and then we'll submit for reimbursement from the state. So pretty simple, straightforward.
Okay. Questions from anyone on the committee? Comments? We don't have a resolution or a motion yet, do we? I would entertain a motion to approve and forward. This goes to the county board as well, right? Sure it does.
I move to approve.
I see Vandermeulen and Bauer. Move and second. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of the resolution to forward the budget adjustment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, folks. And one more budget adjustment, and that is for CJCC. That's for the courtroom updates. That also is in your packet. Sarah, do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. So this is a short notice opportunity that came up through the Department of Justice for emergency coronavirus funding. This is the first phase of 2 phases that was made available to counties. So it was $58,000 on the table for counties, and it had to be used for courtroom operations, jail operations, or law enforcement, and really related to COVID precautions. We were able to meet as a CJCC and came to the consensus that using the funding for our courtroom upgrades would be the best use of funds right now. So that was something that we did collaboratively. The jail felt like they had what they needed at this time. Law enforcement also is able to operate safely as they can under precautions. So this was a project that was underway, but was short on funding. So we were able to bring in $58,000 that will go towards that project. So we have it listed under the Clerk of Court's budget, and it's largely going to go towards contractual services for the upgrade in courtrooms 3 and 4. And I'd probably defer to Katie Shalley at this point if she has more to add to that.
Katie?
No, Sarah did a great job. Like she said, it's mainly going to go to cover the, expenses for the contractors coming in for the project. The remainder of the funds for the project are covered by the routes to recovery. So this should not be a cost to the county at all, or if so, it's very minimal.
Sounds good. And this goes right along with our, it's kind of appropriate that these come from the COVID funds, since this is going to make dealing with COVID a little bit easier. I'd entertain a motion to approve this budget adjustment for the CJCC and the courts and forward it to the county board with our recommendation. Who moved? Jim Zons?
You move or second?
Mike Rogers seconds. Any discussion, further clarifications, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Brings us to item number 8 on the agenda, announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Don't see any. Somebody's talking. No announcements. Next meeting date, November 23rd. We will have the resolution that we discussed today on that agenda. November 23rd, how does that fit in with Thanksgiving? Anybody know? Is that the Monday before Thanksgiving? Is that deer hunting?
Yes, it
It
is.
is Monday before Thanksgiving.
That's during Holy Week too, huh? Well, meetings can always be changed. So at least for now, let's set that November 23rd meeting date. The county board does not meet in December, so there's no urgency. If there's a compelling reason to postpone, we can always do that. Unless somebody has strong feelings about it right now, that's what we'll do. Don't see any strong feelings being exhibited. So we'll set the next meeting for November 23rd, 4:30, same time, same station. And if circumstances warrant, we can always postpone that meeting a little bit. All right, seeing no other business on the agenda, I want to say thank you to all the staff and committee members for your participation tonight. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks.
You have a good evening.